MMA fans around the world. Sit back, relax, and get ready for your weekly dose of MMA coverage. And now, coming out of Glasgow, Scotland, the Alba MMA Podcast!
Damn, son, isn't that enough?
Back to the Alba MMA Podcast. Today we're really pleased to announce we have Pedro Munhoz on the call. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Yeah, just lived it. You know, can't complain. Life is great.
Yeah, weird times we're living in, weird times, but we're just going to try to ask you a few questions today, man, and I'm going to start. Basically, I want to start at the beginning of your career. You know, you had an extensive grappling background, and a lot of your MMA career at the start you were fighting in Brazil. Can you tell me what the grind was like to get to the UFC, and what your initial reaction was when you made it in the UFC after all the years of grinding?
Yeah, no, sure. That's a great question. You know, I grew up in Brazil. You know, did like a few martial arts in the beginning, karate, judo. You know, so karate. I was doing the community next to my neighborhood that I grew up, and then went to school. Was able to practice a little bit judo, but was never
that info, and then I'll.
And that was until I started watching the first UFC 1, 2, and 3. Saw Royce Gracie, and then I was very interested in learning the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I was living in Brazil, and I never heard about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I think a year later I found this gym next to my neighborhood, and I started doing Jiu-Jitsu and starting competing. Talking about was about 13, 14 years old. I was always interested. I was always like to fight, like a fist fight, things like that. And like while I was doing jiu-jitsu, it was always very attractive to MMA, and I knew that sooner or later I would do the transaction to MMA. So with that, I started boxing as a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and which I did like a few amateur fights in boxing. And I met, at the same time, I met like this Cuban guy that was teaching wrestling in Brazil. So it was not a lot of people that had the opportunity to wrestle there. So I got the opportunity to wrestle there. And then at the same time, I was competing jiu-jitsu. I was just going to school and then training, the rest of the day. I was very passionate about it. And yeah, so at 2009, I did my first MMA fight. And then in the same year, I fought again. 2010, I fought a very experienced fighter. And then I came to California. I stayed there for about 7 years before I moved here to Florida, training at American Top Team. In California, I fought some local shows. 2 years later that I got there, I signed with the RSA. It was a little bit like a bigger organization, which I was the champion. I defended my title in 2014, and then when I signed with the UFC a couple weeks later. So I got a fight in a short notice to fight and I debut in UFC.
Well, yeah, that's mad. So, Johnny, did you have a second question there, Johnny?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, speaking of the Gracie family, and I know that's how you became introduced to MMA back at the start of your career. I was watching a Gracie breakdown with you demonstrating your guillotine, which obviously that famous submission came from. And I wanted to ask, just how does it feel going from watching the Gracie family and watching Royce Gracie start jiu-jitsu in the UFC to being recognised by Henner and the family, and what that means to you?
Oh man, that's a great question. A great question. I think about that all the time. So it was really nice. It's very blessed for that experience. And also, growing up, like watching like the Gracie family, represent the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, fighting UFC, and then actually before the UFC, we know that a few Gracie members used to just walk in Brazil and challenge, and people from different martial arts, and like a luta livre was really big. So we all know they had it was a strong jiu-jitsu family and all that. And I didn't, I never thought in that age, but later on it was, actually Henry Gracie is a good friend of mine, and him and Hiro, his brother, they're both
Hmm.
Horion Gracie's son. And yeah, it was really nice. It was really nice. I was able to train him a few times. He wanted to do a video about it, and today we're friends. We talk once in a while, so it was really nice being recognized by the Gracie family, you know, and actually show him how I do my guillotine. He was very humble to ask me questions too, and even telling all his students that
We're right now.
they're effective and things like that. It was very nice, man. It was very nice. It was a very blessed experience. I'm very grateful for it.
Yes, for sure. I could admit, honestly, that does sound incredible being recognised by the pioneers of the game. So basically, I want to ask you about the Cody fight, Pedro. Uh, Going into that fight, maybe a lot of casual MMA fans didn't know you as well. But when you got offered that fight and when you took it, were you looking to make a statement by finishing him on the feet? Because I remember after the fight, you said you were very confident on the feet with him because of his chin, maybe. And I also need to ask, towards probably one of the craziest brawls in MMA history, what was going through your mind during that moment? Because that's something a lot of people won't get to experience ever.
You know what happened? It cuts a big part of your talk, so I was not able
Uh,
to. Or you say, I'm so sorry. I was
oh,
trying very
no,
hard,
no.
so
So,
it was cutting.
I was
It
just
was
asking
it was
about
cutting.
the Cody fight.
Oh, say it again.
Yeah, I was just asking about the Cody fight, and towards the end of the fight, when ended up finishing the fight, you guys had a brawl, and it was probably one of the craziest brawls in UFC history. What kind of mindset were you in during that moment? Because not a lot of people get to experience that.
Man, I don't know what's happening with your phone or whatever the connection you guys got over there. It's
Uh,
I literally
Pedro,
I
can you hear me any better? Is it better on my end?
yes,
Go for
Okay.
it,
that
John.
that one that just spoke with me right now, I can hear perfectly.
Okay.
The other one for the other, it's cutting. I can't. It's cutting.
Okay. Well, we'll try it on my end. So basically,
End recording.
The question that Ryan was asking was pertaining to the Cody Garbrandt fight, and he was asking that beforehand, a lot of the casual fans maybe didn't know of you as well as they did Cody, but when you took that fight, were you looking to make a statement, finishing him on the feet like you did? And obviously in the first round, that was one of the craziest tradings and brawls in UFC history. And if you can tell us what sort of mindset you're in during that moment, because that's not a lot of fighters, never mind everyday people, get to experience that sort of thing in the octagon.
Yeah, man, that one was definitely something that I know a lot of people got surprised of. They watched some of my fights before. I was always hanging right there and exchanging. But for being from like a jiu-jitsu background, they were expecting that I was avoiding
Mhm.
to stand with him. But like I said, I came from jiu-jitsu, but quickly, I started like doing boxing. I was I always like in MMA, I always like to brought, you know what I mean? So that was
Mhm.
something that I knew jiu-jitsu was just a transition for MMA later on in my career. So, which I like jiu-jitsu. I practice all the time, but even more, I like to stand. I like more boxing. I like more Muay Thai. And then I put it all together. For me, it was like, oh, great, because I had a great like a base of jiu-jitsu. I won the Brazilian nationals. I won the state 12 times. But even though back in those days, I was already training boxing. Get in trouble here and there and get fight with my fist on the streets, at schools, things like that. And now I spar a lot of great boxers. I used to live in Los Angeles. I used to spar a lot of Mexican boxers. And 2 years ago here in American Top Team, Robson Conceição, he was the gold Olympic medalist in Brazil in boxing. He was here doing his training camp at American Top Team. So we was one of his training partners, vice versa. So I was able to box with him. And, the guy was 12 fights in the city, over 300 amateur fights, and the Olympic gold medalist in Brazil. And so we sparred with him and just got me like very confident that I could stand there with anybody. So, and that the training camp I did with him, there was like 2 fights before the Cody Garbrandt one. So, also I have a lot of great coaches out here. They study a lot about, the opponents that I'm fighting and things like that. We saw a little bit of the whole in the game, on his game. I know the capability that I have to observe punching and how my skills is standing. And I had the confidence, that I could have knocked him out. And people was asking me before the fight, a lot of the people were like, oh, what's your plan? Do you want to plan to take him down? I'm like, no, I plan to stand there with him and knock him out. So, and that's exactly what I proved a lot of people wrong.
Yeah, definitely. That training paid off because Cody is obviously known for his boxing, and to put him down like you did is pretty impressive. And obviously that left you at the top of the bantamweight pile, and that division's on fire right now. And I wanted to ask a couple of questions pertaining to the division. Like, for instance, it looks like Triple C is going to be taking on Dominic Cruz for the title. And I was wondering what you thought of that matchup, given that Cruz has been out for a while and is coming off that loss against Cody, who you've obviously very recently knocked out.
A lot of maybe be politics, but this definitely, Dominic Cruz, he was a 3 times world champion of my division, class act fighter, and really good fighters, even though that he came when lost to Cody Garbrandt. I think just his name just cares is just like a bigger name than mine, without a doubt, for the fact that he was a world champion. I put my name out there. If he gets hurt, I jump in. And also, I did an article about a couple months ago. I call him out Frankie Edgar and Urijah Faber, one of the 2 guys. If after the fight, I would gladly take one of those guys or both, in a different time. So.
Well, I was going to ask actually in terms of Uriah. Sorry, I was going to ask in terms of that Urijah Faber fight if that is something you were looking for soon, because I think that would be a great fight, and it's something the fans would definitely be excited about, because as you said, people who have been champions in other organizations in the past, like Cruz and Faber, it carries a lot of weight when you beat them for the casual fan.
without a doubt, That's definitely, looking forward to fight, right? I know him. He's a great guy, and yeah, I think like, our fight would be epic. It would be really good. He's an OG guy, very aggressive. Um, his name for this sport. I have a lot of respect towards him.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, I think the end of the day, it's a part of the business. I think the greatest needs to fight the greatest, and I think it's an opportunity for me, showcase and fighting Urijah Faber as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, I think that'll be a fight that the fans would love to see. And Pedro, I just wanted to ask at the end of the podcast a couple of predictions of upcoming fights, if that would be all right. And I thought there's no better one to start with than Cejudo versus Cruz. Like we were just talking about how you see that fight going if it does go down.
Wow, that's a good fight. That's a good fight. I do believe, man. You're gonna tell me like I'm crazy, maybe, yeah, but I do believe that Dominic Cruz has definitely the potential, the skills to beat Henry Cejudo. Both they have a good record. You know, I, Dominic Cruz has a great footwork. It's very hard to touch him. Henry Cejudo, has definitely impressed me for the last couple fights. Has involved a lot too. And another good point that I believe that Henry Cejudo, he's just less hurt. And let's say last fight that he did, so I believe he has like a little bit more chin, would say, because I think that just Dominic Cruz, when being like through a lot of battles and stuff, I think his body is just a little bit more beat up. So we know that in a 5-minute round fight can make a difference.
Definitely. I think it'll be a really good fight. As you said, it's an interesting one stylistically. Speaking of matchups that are getting made quite short notice, like that one, I was wondering what you thought of Tony Gaethje, both in the matchmaking of the fight, with Tony having gone through so many contenders leading up to the title, and who you think is going to take that fight if it does go down like the UFC is planning to.
Okay, again, I'm sorry, I cut just at one time and it kind of threw me off.
I was asking about the Tony Gaethje fight, what you thought about the matchmaking of that fight, because obviously Tony has fought so many contenders and beat so many contenders and still can't get the Khabib fight after all that's gone down. But I also wanted to ask who you think wins that fight between Tony and Justin.
Oh man, yeah, no, that's definitely, definitely people was looking forward to that fight against Khabib and Tony. Somehow, whatever they went through, and the fight didn't go, it's not gonna go through. Just Engage was, savage to take that fight, within like less than 3 weeks. I would do that too, to save a part and things like that. The mentality, he is, and I associate that with the same type of mentality I have. My debut was in 10 days notice. And I do think that fight's gonna be even more interesting than Khabib, because both fighters they have their unique style and they both come forward to fight. Just using that hook, it was kind of hard. Like lost for me, like to Aljamain Sterling and John Dodson, they fighters that they are not that much a fighter. They don't come forward as much. They use it more as a strategy. It's completely different than Tony Ferguson and just Engage. They're both gonna look for the finish. It was gonna make the fight even more interesting.
Definitely, I think it'll be a great fight. That's pretty much it. I was wondering, there was one other fight I wanted to ask about, Ngannou versus Rozenstruik. Obviously that fight's coming up if it does go down, or if they move it to that card with Tony Gaethje. How you saw that fight going down?
It cut for about 3-4 seconds. Can you repeat again? I'm sorry.
Okay, apologies for that. I was wondering how you thought the Ngannou Rozenstruik fight would go, how you saw that one finishing if it does go down on the Tony versus Justin card.
Oh man, that fight is gonna be insane. The guy from Suriname, Jair, he has been training here for the last couple months in American Top Team, and very, very powerful guy. He trains very smart, and and I saw Francis Ngannou, before, very strong and powerful. That one's gonna be, and I don't think that fight is gonna even take more than in one round, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those fights that is going to end very quickly as soon as somebody lands. But Pedro, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast. Apologies for the connection. I'm not. I think it's just the distance between Scotland and where you are. It's just how it's going. But again, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. To everybody listening, make sure to check out Pedro in the description below. And thank you, Pedro, very much for coming on.
Oh yeah, great. Pleasure was mine. You guys, doing a great job. Like, would like to congratulate you guys for, it was a great questions, and and I hope you guys can succeed, and I hopefully you guys we can talk again anytime soon.
Thank you very much, Pedro. I appreciate it, and good luck with the quarantine.